Imagine going to the emergency room, right? You're in just agonizing pain.
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Exactly. But then the doctor sends you home with, like, nothing but Tylenol and instructions to rest.
Which is incredibly frustrating.
Right. And here's the kicker. It's not because your blood test came back normal,
Right.
and it's not because of a physical exam either. It's literally because a screen told them to.
Yeah, an algorithm.
Exactly. An algorithm looked at, I don't know, thousands of patients, quote unquote, like you from 10 years ago, saw some pattern in the data, and just decided your pain wasn't statistically significant enough to warrant further resources.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. And the crazy thing is, that scenario isn't science fiction. It is the immediate, on-the-ground reality of modern medicine.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. So today we are taking a deep dive into an excerpt from this really fascinating piece called The Digital Mirror: What Healthcare AI Reveals About Us.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is. And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out what actually happens when we feed the incredibly complex, just messy world of human medicine into these artificial intelligence systems.
Right, because it's never as clean as the tech companies promise.
Definitely not. And spoiler alert for everyone listening, according to our source today, the AI isn't just some shiny new medical tool. A much better image to keep in your head is a mirror.
A mirror. I love that analogy.
Yeah, but not like a funhouse mirror that distorts things. It's a perfectly clear, high-definition mirror that shows us exactly what our healthcare system actually prioritizes right now.
Flaws and all.
Exactly, complete with all its hidden flaws and quiet compromises. So, okay, let's unpack this, because if AI is a mirror, what exactly is it reflecting right now?
Well, it reflects choices that were made long, long before the algorithm was even programmed.
Oh, really? How so?
I mean, we typically look at an AI system and ask, what is the computer deciding?
Yeah, that's what I would ask.
Right, but the text argues that we need to totally invert that question. We need to ask what human choices the computer is inheriting.
Inheriting. Okay.
Yeah, choices about, what matters, what actually gets measured, where the funding goes, and critically, what is tolerated as an acceptable loss.
Wow. An acceptable loss. That's a heavy phrase.
It is, because AI does not introduce those choices into healthcare. It exposes them.
I see.
It basically takes the values of the human system that built it and reflects them back at us at this massive scale.
Right.
So we are looking at not just what these AI systems do on a technical level, but why their underlying logic matters so deeply for the future of, your care.
So to understand what that mirror is reflecting, we have to look at what the AI is actually staring at all day, right? Which is the data.
Exactly. The data is everything.
Right. AI systems learn from massive data sets. That is literally their entire universe. And the piece makes this really fundamental point that data is never neutral. Yeah, healthcare data is basically a historical record. It captures who actually receives care and who gets ignored.
And which conditions get heavily funded.
Exactly. And whose outcomes are deemed acceptable. So when an AI trains on these patterns, it absorbs all those institutional assumptions right alongside the actual, biological, medical facts.
It really does.
I was thinking about this, and it's like inheriting a vintage family recipe book, right?
Okay, yeah.
But let's say the previous cook always skimped on the expensive ingredients just to save a few bucks.
Right, they use the cheap stuff.
Yeah. So if you feed those exact recipes into a fully automated cooking machine, it's not going to suddenly invent a richer, better dish.
No, of course not.
It is going to perfectly, ruthlessly replicate those exact same compromises because, that is what it thinks the recipe is.
That's a great way to put it. The machine doesn't know why the cheap ingredients are there.
Mm-hmm.
It just optimizes for the pattern it was fed.
Right.
And in healthcare, this happens through something called feature weighting.
Feature weighting. Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. So when an algorithm evaluates a patient, it doesn't see a human being sitting in a room.
All right.
It sees a mathematical vector made up of hundreds of variables: zip code, insurance type, how often you visited the clinic in the past, previous medical billing codes.
All just data points.
Exactly. The algorithm looks for proxies to determine how sick someone actually is. And historically, one of the easiest proxies for a patient's health need has been how much money the healthcare system spent on them in the past.
Oh, wait, but if a patient comes from a historically marginalized background or, simply didn't have good insurance,
Yep.
then the system probably spent way less money on them.
Exactly. And that is exactly how a complex human reality turns into a mathematical penalty.
Wow.
The algorithm looks at the low historical spending and concludes, This demographic must be healthier, so they need fewer resources moving forward.
That is genuinely terrifying.
It really is. It codifies an access problem as a biological fact. What's fascinating here is how the text distills this dynamic into a very sharp observation. They wrote, "What appears to be technical bias is often a moral inheritance."
Okay, I want to break down that phrase, moral inheritance, because, I mean, if I am listening to this and I'm a programmer, I might push back a little.
Sure, let's hear it.
If an AI is looking at raw biological data, like blood pressure, heart rate, lab results from a blood draw, shouldn't the math inherently bypass all of our human baggage?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, a white blood cell count is just a white blood cell count.
But the thing is, raw biological data doesn't exist in a vacuum.
What do you mean?
Well, a lab result only gets recorded in the electronic health record if a doctor decides to order the test in the first place.
Right.
A blood pressure reading only exists if the patient actually had the time, the money, and the transportation to get to the clinic.
That makes total sense.
The very presence or absence of data is the footprint of a human decision. So when we say the AI is just looking at raw numbers, we are completely ignoring the human filtering system that generated those numbers.
Wow. So it's missing the whole context.
Exactly. The algorithm doesn't see a patient who couldn't afford a cab to the hospital. It just sees a patient who is, quote-unquote, non-compliant with their follow-up appointments.
And it penalizes them for it.
Right. It assigns a negative weight to that variable. The machine basically inherits the moral blind spots of the system and locks them in as objective mathematical rules.
Okay, so if the machine is absorbing all this messy history and turning it into unbending rules, what happens when it actually collides with the reality of a modern hospital?
Chaos sometimes.
Right, because these algorithms aren't operating in some sterile lab. They are being deployed into environments defined by chronic scarcity.
Absolutely.
You've got overwhelmed physical infrastructure, exhausted clinicians, tightly constrained budgets. I mean, the entire system is just perpetually running on fumes.
Scarcity is basically the water our healthcare system swims in.
Yeah.
And AI is heavily marketed to hospital administrators as the ultimate life raft.
Oh, I bet. Buy this software and solve all your problems.
Exactly. The pitch is that algorithms will optimize the scarcity. They will predict, which patients can be discharged faster, flag who really needs an ICU bed, streamline triage so the waiting room clears out.
Which sounds great on paper.
It does. But the trap, according to our deep dive today, is that because scarcity is so normalized, the AI learns to optimize within that broken paradigm rather than actually challenge it.
Right.
It looks at the limited resources and just calculates the most efficient way to distribute the crumbs.
Okay, I struggle with this a bit, though.
How so?
Well, let's say I'm bleeding in the emergency room on a Saturday night.
Okay.
The waiting room is packed with 50 other people, and the doctors are just completely underwater. In that exact moment, I want the algorithm sorting the line.
You want speed?
Yes. I want the fastest, most ruthlessly efficient triage possible. I don't care about the moral implications or the systemic scarcity if the algorithm gets me a bed faster,
Right, yeah.
Why shouldn't hospitals prioritize pure speed when people's lives are literally on the line?
It's a totally fair point.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the issue isn't that speed is inherently bad in an acute emergency.
Okay.
The issue is how the algorithm achieves that speed and what it makes invisible in the process.
Invisible?
Yeah. Algorithms require quantifiable metrics. They can easily measure waiting room times, bed turnover rates, length of stay.
The numbers.
Right. But they cannot measure a patient's mounting fear, or the moral distress of a nurse, or the cumulative harm of sending a borderline patient home just a little too early.
Wow.
By definition, if something cannot be quantified, the algorithm assigns it a weight of 0.
So the unquantifiable human elements are just completely erased from the equation.
Yes, completely. Let's look at a concrete mechanism, like a sepsis prediction or a patient discharge algorithm. If a hospital is at, say, 110% capacity, an AI trained to optimize throughput might subtly shift the risk threshold for who gets admitted.
To keep the beds open.
Exactly. It recommends discharging patients who, in a less crowded hospital, would have definitely been kept overnight for observation.
Oh, wow.
And the hospital administration looks at their dashboard and sees a beautifully efficient spreadsheet.
Oh.
Waiting times went down. Success.
All right.
But it's a fake success.
Because what they don't see are the patients who went home and suffered complications in quiet desperation.
Yeah.
They don't see the nurse who felt in her gut that a patient looked unstable, but the screen flashed a green, low-risk score, so she had to follow protocol.
That is heartbreaking.
When you scale that dynamic across millions of patients, invisibility becomes policy. We literally start confusing the sheer velocity of clearing beds with actual meaningful healing.
So why do doctors go along with it?
I mean, if this technology is quietly institutionalizing invisible harms and systematically normalizing delayed care, why are clinicians willing to let the machine take the wheel?
It's complicated.
According to the text, it comes down to the psychological comfort that an algorithm provides, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because algorithmic decisions feel impersonal. And because they feel impersonal, they feel objective. And because they feel objective, they feel safe.
You have to remember, human decision-making in medicine is an incredibly stressful, high-stakes endeavor.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Being clinician means carrying the heavy burden of consequence every single shift. If you make the wrong call, someone gets permanently hurt. That's a terrifying weight to carry.
Right.
So relying on a machine creates a massive psychological distance between the clinician and the outcome.
It takes the pressure off.
Yes, responsibility diffuses. If the AI flags a patient for a standard care pathway and the outcome is poor, the discomfort is externalized onto the computer. The clinician can tell themselves, I was just following the data.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I was reading this section and just trying to wrap my head around the long-term impact of that psychological distance.
It's a big shift.
The source calls it moral de-skilling.
Moral de-skilling, yes.
It sounds exactly like relying on GPS to navigate.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
Right. Because at first, you use your phone's GPS as just a helpful tool to find a specific restaurant in a new part of town.
Very handy.
But after 5 years of blindly following the blue line on your screen every single time you get in the car, you literally lose the spatial awareness to navigate your own neighborhood.
You really do.
You stop looking at landmarks, you stop understanding how the streets actually connect, you just wait for the voice to tell you to turn left.
Exactly. Because moral reasoning is a muscle.
A muscle.
Yeah, it requires practice, friction, and discomfort to maintain. When you use a surgical risk algorithm or a triage pathway every single day, you subtly stop looking at the patient's physical cues.
You're just staring at the screen.
Right, you stop synthesizing their unique context. You just look at the score on the tablet. When complex ethical decisions, like, who gets the last ventilator or who gets flagged for palliative care.
Huge decisions.
Exactly. When those are repeatedly delegated to a machine, that ethical reasoning atrophies.
But how does that actually play out in the hospital hallways? Because doctors aren't just robots blindly following screens, right? They have years of training and intuition.
Of course.
So if an algorithm gives a recommendation that just feels wrong, why wouldn't a doctor just overwrite it?
Because of the institutional friction designed into the system.
Friction, like red tape.
Exactly. Hospital administration wants throughput. The AI provides throughput. If a doctor looks at a patient and says, my clinical intuition tells me this algorithm is wrong, we need to keep this patient here, that doctor is suddenly creating friction.
Oh, they're slowing down the assembly line.
Yes. Overriding the AI might require documenting a lengthy justification in the electronic health record. It might require arguing with a utilization review manager or an insurance provider who points to the algorithm as the quote-unquote standard of care.
So it's an uphill battle.
Clicking accept on the AI's recommendation takes 1 second. Fighting it takes 20 minutes of administrative combat.
Wow.
So over time, exhausted clinicians learn a very dangerous lesson. They learn when to defer to the machine and when to stop resisting.
They learn that fighting the blue line on the GPS is just too exhausting.
And that is a profound risk to human accountability. The system begins to treat individual clinical judgment not as the bedrock of medicine, but as a roadblock to momentum.
That's chilling.
It is. The capacity to articulate why a certain choice matters starts to fade because the system no longer demands that clinicians do the heavy lifting of moral justification. Delegating hard choices to a machine simply because it shields us from administrative friction and emotional discomfort is really how a healthcare system loses its soul.
Let's bring this right down to the ground level. Because this loss of moral navigation skills doesn't just stay in the hospital administration offices, right? It ripples out directly to the patient's bedside.
Absolutely.
The text makes it very clear that patients might never see the system diagrams, and they might never know an algorithm was even used to evaluate their chart, but they absolutely feel the effects of it.
They feel it every time they visit.
They experience how much time is actually taken during their appointment. They experience whether alternative treatments are even offered to them.
Right. When care feels incredibly transactional, like you are just a barcode moving down an assembly line, the AI is reflecting a system that has successfully optimized away human relationships.
Wow.
When the care feels opaque and you can't get a straight answer on why a specific scan was denied.
Which happens all the time.
Right. The AI is reflecting a system that values legal defensibility and cost containment over actually helping you understand your health.
So how can a patient advocate for themselves in that environment?
It's tough, but it's possible.
Give me the practical, on-the-ground reality here. Because a sick patient sitting in a hospital gown, feeling vulnerable and scared, they don't want to hear about exercising a doctor's moral muscle.
No, of course not.
They just want to know how to get the right treatment when the doctor's staring at a tablet.
This raises an important question about where the power actually lies in the exam room.
Okay.
AI capabilities are constrained by the culture of the hospital. If you are sitting in a facility that structurally values speed and compliance above all else, the AI will relentlessly amplify those traits.
Right.
But technology cannot supply values, it only amplifies them. As a patient, your goal is to break the clinician's automatic deference to the screen. You need to force a human dialogue.
Force the dialogue. What is the actual script for that? Like, what should you say?
You ask direct grounding questions. You say, I understand that is the standard algorithmic protocol. But looking at my specific medical history and my specific lifestyle, is this what you personally recommend?
Oh, that's good.
Ask them, what are the alternative options that the standard pathway might be filtering out?
So you're making them think outside the box.
Exactly. You are asking them to step outside the aggregated data of millions of strangers and apply their localized individual expertise to the person sitting right in front of them. You are forcing them to look away from the tablet and look you in the eye.
Which feels especially critical when we think about the next generation of doctors.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the reading spends time discussing medical students and trainees, the ones who are growing up in this heavily automated environment right now.
The digital natives of medicine.
Yeah. If you learn medicine by just following pre-structured algorithmic pathways from day one, how does that change the kind of doctor you become?
It changes everything. Trainees are at a critical juncture right now. Diagnostic intuition isn't something you read in a textbook.
Right.
It is built by sitting with uncertainty, making hard calls in the gray areas of medicine, and, honestly, occasionally getting it wrong and learning from the fallout.
Learning from experience.
Exactly. But if the algorithm is always providing a high-confidence answer, the trainee is never forced to build their internal map. They might never actually develop a tolerance for ambiguity.
Because the computer is always so sure of itself.
Right. The mirror of AI isn't just reflecting who we are today, it is actively shaping the minds of the people who will be taking care of us in 20 years.
Wow. Okay, so to sum this all up for you listening, healthcare and AI is not a villain, but it is definitively not neutral.
Not at all.
It is an unblinking mirror. It faithfully reflects our society's tolerance for inequity, our comfort with treating human beings as just data points, and our ultimate definition of what care actually means.
Perfectly said.
The danger is not the reflection in the mirror. The danger is our refusal to look at it and our willingness to pretend that math is just magically immune to human flaws.
We have to face it.
Yeah. If we want AI to reflect dignity and genuine human presence, we cannot expect programmers to just build those traits into the code. We have to embed those values structurally into the governance, the incentives, and the very foundation of the hospitals themselves.
The AI forces a cultural reckoning.
It really does.
It asks us what kind of care we are actually building. If healthcare AI continues to perfectly, ruthlessly reflect the hidden flaws and compromises of our current systems,
Yeah.
and society eventually decides that the reflection in that mirror is simply too ugly to bear,
What happens then?
well, will our instinct be to break the mirror by banning the technology? Or will the stark, undeniable reality of that reflection finally force us to tear down and rebuild the human institution standing in front of it?